A brief introduction to ways of being. I'm a writer and an artist and a number of other things. Um, I've had various hats. Um, this book emerged from a particular field of work and a particular background. Um, my work for the last more than a decade was largely in what could loosely be called technology criticism. Um, I made a lot of works about contemporary technologies, largely from a critical perspective, and those took the form of videos and installations and texts and images and a whole range of work. And at the same time, I was writing, as I usually am, and that writing coalesced into a book called New Dark Age. Kind of summarized, I think, maybe a decade's thinking on my part about technology. The main theme of that book was the essential unknowability of contemporary technologies by anyone at an individual level, and by extension, the vast doubts and uncertainty we all have about the world around us, uh, aware that we are enmeshed in kind of vast systems about which we know and can understand as individuals very little, um, but we understand like govern and direct most aspects of our lives, whether that's political systems, financial systems, technological systems, the climate system. Um, we're aware of these hyper objects, but feel we have a little agency within them. And that book, New Dark Age, concentrated on technological aspects of that, looking at everything from mass surveillance to artificial intelligence as it appeared 7, 8 years ago, um, uh, and to some more um, larger questions about what is knowable uh, in the world. Um, Finishing that book, I was also I felt somewhat finished with technology. I really, I always say I always wanted to write a book about technology. I always wanted to write a book about the internet, and I thought it would be a book about how great the internet is because I grew up on it and I still kind of, despite everything, love it. But I started writing that book, New Dark Age, between the Brexit vote and the first Trump election, and so that coloured it somewhat and turned it into the book it was, which was really an attempt to answer the question of why the internet, which I thought was so great, was actually so terrible. Um, as I say, when I finished it, I was sort of done with technology, and I wanted to shift my interests, and as that goes, shift my life, because the work that we do and the things that we focus on shape our lives quite directly. And I wanted to move in towards a more ecological way of living, way of being, um, in which you know the concerns of the living planet were more central to what I was thinking about and what I was doing. But I didn't want to just kind of go into that like blind. Essentially, I wanted to see what I could take from what I already knew to see if there was something I could bring to ecological discussions from what I already learned and knew about. And it turned out that that route was through ideas of intelligence. Um, I had a sneaking suspicion for some time that there were interesting questions about AI that were not being asked or spoken of in tech-centered discussions of artificial intelligence. And at the same time, I had my own growing awareness and was alert to larger discussions that were happening around the lives and beinghood of non-humans, aware of the growing vocal discoveries, growing numbers of texts, interesting writing about the life worlds, the legal rights, the vast new possibilities that we were realizing about non-human life. And so I had this realization that perhaps talking about artificial intelligence as simply as a non-human intelligence and bring it into discussions of what I had come to understand as the more than human world would be an interesting thing to do. And so that's where ways of being comes from. It was an attempt to put non-human machine intelligence into the context of larger discussions of non-human intelligence more broadly. And I originally thought it would be a book about intelligence itself, um, but I quickly realized that um, intelligence is such a broadly and ill-defined term that uh, there's a lot of different places one can go with that discussion. So in the book, I delved into ideas of intelligence from a human and non-human perspective, but also quite broader ideas of sensing, of how different beings feel and understand the world, what we can know about other species, but also particularly, and I think this is really key, what to do with that knowledge. If we start to admit, as I think is completely unavoidable, um, the infinite complexity um, of the lives of non-humans. How does that change our behavior? How does it change our politics? And those questions also make up the final chapters of the book. So yeah, this book was an attempt to reframe my own experience of the world through bringing knowledge from one domain of technology to bear onto the much broader range of the non-human world. And it changed my life utterly to do in doing so. Um, uh, and it amplified changes that were happening in my life, and it created new ones because it matters where we put our attention.